Millionaire chefs laughed at the dishwater, but she shockingly revealed her amazing hidden talent. Alice stared at the stomach-churning pile of dirty plates, her hands slipping against the grime-cloaked surface. She could feel the million-dollar chefs of the Silver Fork parading around, their laughter echoing through the ornate hall, an obnoxious symphony that battered at her self-worth. They didn't know who she was, just a dishwasher, a tired single mother drowning in suds while they garnished their extravagant dishes. But today, amidst the clatter of pots and pans, an idea sparked in the back of her mind. Could she show them? Could she take her place among them? The thought danced in her head, a tantalizing temptation wrapped in guilt. Every evening, after long shifts, Alice poured her heart into cooking for Lily. Her grandmother's pot roast simmered with memories. Her mother's pie crust was a timeless delight. Yet doubt always lingered dangerously close. Her daughter's bright eyes brought her back down, tugging at the chains of responsibility. Should she dare to dream? The fear of losing the little stability they had crept over her like a suffocating blanket. As tension built in her chest, Alice envisioned the upcoming Heartland Culinary contest. The possibility of stepping out from the shadows invigorated her, fueling a desperate desire to escape the kitchen's wet, cold cloister, where dreams went to die. But every time she considered stepping up, a wave of dread washed over her. The chef's laughter morphed into echoes of her own insecurities. Who was she to think she could compete? Her fledgling aspirations seemed laughable compared to their years of training and polished confidence. What if they laughed at her? The thought plunged a knife into her gut. Before she could wrest away the fears, the chefs announced an impromptu cook-off. The possibility surged through her veins. Alice stood at the edge, battling with the duality of her soul, fear and yearning. Her heart raced as her legs trembled near the kitchen entrance. When she heard their mocking chatter, dismissing her cooking and presence, it felt like nails raking down her spine. The sheer weight of their derision crushed any semblance of courage. But she was tethered dreamily to Lily's smiling face, a ray of light amid the chaos. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the mockery buzzed around her, something deep inside shifted. The knife of doubt twisted, but the embers of determination began to flicker. She wanted more than just to be a spectator in her own life. Gathering her fear and self-loathing, she pushed through the chaotic noise, channeling every ounce of her heritage into a dish that reflected her. She envisioned her past, her grandmother's laughter, her mother's whispers of wisdom. As she crafted her creation, something primal surged within her. For the first time, Alice wasn't just a dishwasher. She was a storyteller preparing to share the legacy of her family, each ingredient a voice that had been silenced. As she stepped into the limelight of that cook-off, Alice's heart hammered wildly. The million-dollar chefs fell silent, their confusion palpable. Could she challenge their long-held beliefs? Beneath the extravagant surface, there was a hidden light waiting to be revealed. Would they finally see her worth, or would they just laugh again? The heavy air crackled with anticipation, setting the stage for what was to come. The weight of expectation wrapped around Alice like a constricting vine. In that moment, as her creation simmered beside her, she understood it wasn't just about the dish. Each slice of vegetable, each spice ground carefully into a fragrant blend, represented more than flavors. It symbolized her journey, her sacrifices, and her unending determination. This was her chance, the first real shot at carving out her identity. When the clock began ticking down, each second thrummed in tandem with her racing heart. The chefs who once mocked her now observed her with narrowed eyes, the shift in their demeanor igniting a fire within her. She recalled the hours spent in her small kitchen, where Lily would watch, rapt with attention, as her mother conjured magic from the simplest ingredients. The image of her daughter's wonder fueled her resolve. With every movement, Alice poured from her spirit. She consciously tuned out the voices of doubt, ignoring the insidious murmurs that suggested she didn't belong. The weight of her work-worn hands on the knife felt empowering. She remembered cutting through years of struggle, each chop an assertion, a reminder that she was more than her circumstances. Focus, she whispered to herself as she reached for her grandmother's secret mix of spices, a blend she hadn't dared to use in public before. Hans's laughter swirled in her mind, but beneath it was a quiet affirmation, a whisper that her roots were worthy, that she had a place here. As Alice plated her dish artfully, a sudden fit of panic shot through her. Had she bottled her heritage too tightly? Would they break her open and reveal nothing of value? The imagined criticism felt like a weight resting heavily in her chest. But a counterweight emerged, the thought of her daughter waiting at home, believing in her with undiluted faith. With a deep breath, Alice placed the final touch atop her creation, a vibrant herb garnish, a visual metaphor for fresh beginnings. She stepped back, surveyed her work, and found a moment of clarity. This wasn't just a meal, it was her voice, her truth, a glimpse into a life unfurling beyond the drudgery of dishwashing. As she faced the panel of judges, the million-dollar chefs whose names floated like trophies in the culinary world, her anxiety sharpened into focus. They scrutinized her plate, their brows knitted as they engaged in whispered discussion. For the first time, Alice wasn't an invisible figure. She was a contender, a challenger. A surprisingly calm silence enveloped the kitchen as they tasted her dish, one by one. The first chef, a renowned Michelin star holder, raised an eyebrow, a flicker of curiosity igniting in his gaze. Another chef savored a bite, and Alice could see the spark of recognition flicker in his expressions, as if he was understanding the story in every mouthful. But as their initial reactions unfolded, so did another layer of tension within Alice. What would their final verdict reveal? Would this moment, this bold step into the light, become a source of validation or humiliation? As the last taste was evaluated, Alice felt an undeniable urge to challenge the chefs directly, to unmask the skepticism that masked their expressions. Did they see her, or had they relegated her back to the shadows? The instant felt ripe with a decision, one that would define more than just her culinary pursuits. Unbeknownst to her, the ripple effects of her presence were already unsettling the status quo, renewing questions about true talent amidst privilege. Alice took a step forward, a movement so small yet loaded with weight. The air crackled with impending change. She could initiate a dialogue that could reshape her reality. But just as the head judge opened his mouth to speak, a loud crash echoed through the kitchen, metal clanging against marble, an unintended distraction. Hearts raced as all eyes turned in unison toward the source of the commotion, and Alice's heart dropped with a mix of dread and intrigue. Was this the moment she had been waiting for, or would the chaos skew everything she'd fought for? The uncertainty loomed heavily, leaving Alice on the precipice of change, wondering what would emerge from the chaos. The crash reverberated through the kitchen, a jarring disruption that momentarily shattered Alice's focus. Her heart raced, tethered between excitement and anxiety. She instinctively turned to see a fellow contestant, Tom, fumbling to gather a cascade of fallen pans, his face painted with embarrassment. A fleeting moment of camaraderie ignited in her, a reminder that beneath the pressures of competition, they were all just people trying to make their mark. But that thought was quickly washed away by the need to reclaim her moment. The judges, momentarily distracted, refocused their gazes on Alice, and she felt the weight of their scrutiny once more. The head judge's lips parted, but the air crackled with unspoken tension. Would they feel a sense of compassion for her along with the recognition of her talent? The fear of being misunderstood gripped her. As the head judge, a stern-faced woman known for her no-nonsense critique, assessed the plate, Alice could almost hear her thoughts. Unraveling the complexities of her dish, did it resonate? Did it reflect authenticity, or was it merely a paltry attempt to impress? Just as she began to balance her breath with the thrum of doubt again, the judge smiled, the slightest curve of her lips that sent a ripple of hope coursing through Alice. "Your dish," the judge began, her voice steady and authoritative, "it tells a story." The weight of those 4 words enveloped Alice, the gravity of their sincerity sinking deep. It was more than just acknowledgement. It was an invitation for connection, a moment where her memories and aspirations coalesced with the present. Encouraged, Alice stepped closer. "It's about embracing home, the flavors that shaped me," she found herself saying, her voice steadying. "Every ingredient reminds me of my heritage. It's not just food, it's a heritage on a plate." The words flowed out, raw and honest, perhaps more vulnerable than she had intended, but revealing a depth of reconnecting with her roots that felt both freeing and frightening. The buzz in the room shifted. Her words had caught the attention of the other judges, their heads tilting in curiosity. The energy seemed to pulse with possibility, as if her authenticity was a key unlocking a door they had long since closed. Yet she perceived a flicker of doubt in their expressions. Was her heritage strong enough to break through their preconceived notions? Then, a younger judge, one with an edgy reputation for championing innovation and diversity in cuisine, leaned forward. "Alice, this is more than tradition. It exhibits a boldness that many fail to capture. It juxtaposes elegance with roots." As he spoke, Alice began processing the implications of his words. This wasn't merely validation. It was a challenge to redefine culinary conventions, to shatter expectations. At that moment, an internal battle ignited within her. Could she embrace this newfound sense of purpose and redefine not just her approach to cooking, but her identity as a chef? The voices of doubt still lurked, reminding her of an endless cycle of struggle. Yet embers of determination flared within her, illuminating a path forward that could intertwine her heritage with her burgeoning identity in this field. The heads nodded, the chefs exchanged glances. This was a dialogue charged with enthusiasm and anticipation. They weren't merely judges now, they were potential allies. But just as Alice thought she could tread that path, the head judge interjected. "We're not just looking for flavor. We need to see if you have the ingenuity to evolve this dish into something that challenges the norms of our industry." A moment of fierce intensity suspended all else. Alice felt the stakes rise. This was her opportunity to embody change, to expand beyond her initial vision. But how much more could she offer without losing her essence? Could such evolution become part of her journey rather than a betrayal of her roots? As her mind swirled with potential ideas, the overwhelming reality of her vision loomed ahead, a blank canvas waiting for those bold strokes. Each passing second felt like an eternity, pregnant with opportunity, forcing her to confront the truth. The dish was only the beginning. It was time to rise, to confront the confines of expectation, to etch her mark in a world that had scoffed at her existence. However, the question loomed large. Was she prepared to risk it all for something truly transformative? The tension wrapped tightly around her, igniting a pulse of clarity. Alice's path was no longer solely about culinary mastery. It was about her legacy. A flicker of excitement sparked as she gathered her thoughts to respond, feeling the electric charge of changing dynamics pulse through her veins. Yet, with innovation suddenly required, would she give all of herself to this new mission, or would fear hold her back? The moment had come to embrace the chaos. Would she rise to meet the challenge, or slip back into doubt once more? The next step could carve her destiny into the culinary world, but what awaited her was an exhilarating yet terrifying leap into the unknown. Alice felt her pulse quicken as the weight of the judge's expectations settled in. The kitchen around her hummed with a vibrant energy, but within her, an endless tide of thoughts crashed against the shores of determination and dread. Could she truly innovate while honoring the traditions rooted within her? The very essence of her culinary identity lay precariously balanced on the edge of transformation. "Evolve," the head judge had urged, and as her words echoed in Alice's mind, she envisioned a radical switch. What if she took familiar ingredients and reimagined them entirely? The thought ignited a spark of rebellion, an act of culinary rebellion against the confines of portraying authenticity solely as nostalgia. Yet, would the new direction betray the memories she cherished? She glanced at her workstation, cluttered with colors, scents, and shimmers of her heritage, and sensed their potential to morph into something unexpected. Could she delve deeper into those flavors, yet present them in a way that would surprise even the harshest critics? The challenge wasn't just about food, it was about crafting a narrative that melded her past with an audacious future. A rush of adrenaline surged through her as she began to plot her approach. Stripped of the fear that had previously overshadowed her thoughts, Alice reached for the tools she would need. She chopped vegetables with precision, testing textures while exploring contrasting tastes. This dish would not just tell a story, it would roar. Each chop echoed clarity in her mind. She began layering flavors instead of merely presenting them. Merging her grandmother's traditional recipes with modern techniques became her mantra, a method to bridge the past and the future. As she worked, her vision sharpened. She imagined combining the rich spices of her childhood with adventurous components, perhaps a fusion element that pushed boundaries while simultaneously respecting the roots of the dish. A smear of local microgreens that contrasted with lush heritage flavors danced at the periphery of her plans. Would the judges recognize the fusion as a celebration rather than a contradiction? Doubt creeped in momentarily. The voices of her critics echoed with taunts aimed at chefs who strayed too far from their roots. But Alice steered her thoughts away from fear and towards empowerment. She had the skills, she had the voice. Now it was time to meld them into a singular dish that would speak volumes. With each passing moment, a more vivid picture emerged in her mind. It wasn't simply about the food, it was about identity. As she whipped cream into a velvety texture, she envisioned it draped over a foundation of her ancestral favorites, inviting the judges to unearth the layered identities while experiencing each bite. With each passing moment, a more vivid picture emerged in her mind. It wasn't simply about the food, it was about identity. As she whipped cream into a velvety texture, she envisioned it draped over a foundation of her ancestral favorites, inviting the judges to unearth the layered identities while experiencing each bite. The clock was ticking, a reality that reminded her of the fleeting nature of opportunities in this competitive sphere. But with this pressure came an exhilarating rush that transformed her anxiety into an unquenchable drive. Finally, just as she was about to assemble her creation, a sudden realization struck her. This dish could be her statement to the world, her bold declaration against the narrow expectations thrust upon her. It could reflect the complexity of her journey, one fraught with challenges yet imbued with an unyielding desire to craft something meaningful. But a shadow of uncertainty loomed. If she risked this shift, would she alienate those who upheld traditionalism in culinary arts? As her hands worked with feverish determination to capture this duality, she couldn't shake off the impending anxiety coursing through her veins. As she plated her dish, each element placed with meticulous care, Alice felt the fear mingle with hope. There was weight behind every layer, a personal resonance that extended beyond the plate. Just as she stepped back to admire her creation, the head judge's voice cut through her contemplation. "Time's up." Alice's heart sank momentarily as she realized she had to face the culmination of her risk. With shallow breaths, she turned to the judges, ready to unveil her masterpiece. The moment of truth approached. The leap into uncertainty awaited. Would her dish connect, or would it be dismissed as another failed attempt at innovation? Determination surged within her, but the moment was heavy with unanswered questions. Could this dish transform her experience and perception within the culinary world? Only as she revealed her creation would she know the answer. Every risk would be exposed in that instant. As the judges leaned forward, curiosity etched on their faces, Alice felt the heat of the spotlight intensify. She steadied her breath, forcing herself to silence the cacophony of doubt clanging in her mind. With delicate confidence, she lifted the plate. The dish was vibrant, a notable fusion that encapsulated both her heritage and adventurous spirit. "Here it is," she announced, her voice steady despite the racing of her heart. "A tribute to my grandmother's legacy through modern lenses. I've created a spiced cream reduction over a savory corn puree, topped with crisp microgreens and a hint of smoked paprika, all balanced with a charred vegetable medley." The judges exchanged glances, their expressions unfathomable. Alice meticulously observed their reactions, searching for any flicker of approval or disbelief. This was it, the moment she had transformed fear into creative fire, redefining her culinary journey. The head judge, a formidable presence, known for her crisp critiques, leaned closer, scrutinizing every element. "The balance of flavors is intriguing," she remarked. "But tell me, what drives you to risk this fusion? Are you prepared for the potential backlash from tradition?" The question hung heavily in the air, a challenge to her very core. "My goal," Alice replied, her conviction gathering strength, "is to show that tradition can evolve without losing its essence. Food is not just about nostalgia, it is also about growth and exploration." She allowed the weight of her words to settle, hoping it resonated with them. Tension enveloped the room as each judge took a bite of her creation. Alice's heart thundered in her chest, a mix of anticipation and anxiety. As they chewed, the silence felt unbearably long. She fought to keep her posture composed, but inside, a messy whirlwind of thoughts swirled. Had she crossed the line? Would they see the artistry or label it as disobedience? The first judge broke the silence, his brow furrowing in contemplation. "You've incorporated elements that evoke comfort while pushing boundaries, which is commendable," he stated, and Alice felt a surge of hope. The validation turned her attention inward, reevaluating her hard-earned path. Deep down, the culinary rebellion she had embraced had ignited a flame of authenticity. She was no longer just a chef, she was an innovator. Yet, as the second judge chimed in about the dish's intricate layering, Alice recalled the nagging thought of possible alienation from traditionalists. She witnessed the passion in her craft morph into a personal dilemma. At what cost would her individuality come? She realized she wasn't merely confronting judges, she was confronting herself and a society that often dictated culinary boundaries. The head judge nodded in approval before summoning Alice with an intense gaze. "But this revolution comes with dangers. Are you truly ready to stand firm in your choices against those holding the torch of tradition?" Alice met her gaze unwaveringly. Yes, inventive cooking breeds progress in the culinary arts. To shy away from bold moves would deny not only my experience, but my heritage as well. A profound silence followed her bold declaration. The judges appeared to deliberate deeply, weighing her words against their own views of culinary reverence. This was more than just about her dish, it was about her evolving identity. Just then, a burgeoning sense of freedom washed over Alice, freeing her from doubts that had lingered like an unwelcome guest. She would move forward, whatever the outcome. Each bite of her dish now stood as a testament to her journey, a celebration of connection through transformation. And then they started to... But just as she braced herself for the verdict, drawing Alice back to the present, a voice rang out from the side, something she least expected. "Hold on," said a young contestant. "But have you truly faced the real challenge yet?" Curiosity surged in her, but with it came a sense of impending confrontation. She had only just stepped into her new identity, and already an unexpected conflict was brewing. Would this new question challenge everything she'd built so far? Alice felt the air thicken as the young contestant's challenge echoed through the room. It was an exclamation that reverberated not just off the walls, but within her, intruding on her moment of triumph. She locked eyes with the youth, trying to decipher his intent, her thoughts racing. Did he mean to undermine her? Or was this simply a young chef grappling with the weight of innovation themselves? Have I faced the real challenge? She mused internally. The notion consumed her. Had she truly explored the depths of her own creativity, or merely skimmed the surface of her potential? As she stood in the spotlight, every gaze directed at her felt magnified. The voices of the judges buzzed in the background, but her focus turned inward, probing the cavern of her uncertainty. She had stepped over the threshold into a realm where dishes told stories, yet now, faced with the unexpected scrutiny, she questioned if she had done enough to voice her tale. The young contestant took a step forward, emboldened, and continued. You can't call that a fusion without diving into the essence of both sides. What makes you think your dish won't just confuse the diners rather than convey your roots? The word confuse stabbed at her, piercing the protective wall of confidence she had built. She knew her dish had purpose, yet doubts crept in uninvited. Could her culinary statement get lost in a blend that seemed too avant-garde for seasoned palates? I appreciate your perspective, she replied, the tremor in her voice evident. But every innovation begins as a dialogue, a conversation between where we've been and where we're going. Her heart raced again, fear battling with determination. While she stood firm, exchanging words with the contestant, she felt a pang of respect for the passion behind every questioning glance. Perhaps this wasn't just a challenge, it was a moment of introspection, a call to action. The judges, too, seemed transfixed, their earlier deliberations discreetly paused. Alice detected the crackle of interest in their eyes, a flicker of curiosity sparked anew. This heat she felt wasn't just scrutiny. It was an urge to validate her choices and defend the lineage of her culinary craft. Every dish serves as a vehicle of expression, she stated, her voice gathering weight, emboldened by the confrontation. If we only adhere to tradition, we'll never breathe life into our heritage. I strive to honor where I come from by crafting something genuine that speaks to who I am. A chef. The young contestant folded his arms, brow furrowing slightly. Though he didn't reply outright, Alice saw a shift in his expression, an acknowledgement of her drive. The room shifted again. The judges leaned closer, intrigued, as if Alice was igniting a hidden debate. In that moment, Alice realized the importance of engaging with criticism. Art takes time to be understood, and culinary expressions often need to overcome initial rejection. She pondered whether she had given her own doubts too much power. Each dish she crafted was a risk, and perhaps confronting these risks head-on was part of her growth. As silence settled around her, she felt a new resolve taking root within. She was not just a chef, she was part of a wider conversation that traversed generations. Just then, a thought pierced through her contemplation, a mix of excitement and fear. If she were to confront all she had built, what new heights could she reach? This moment wasn't merely a test, it was an opportunity for transformative self-discovery. With newfound resolve, Alice addressed the judges again. What I'm creating isn't merely about the food itself, it's an ongoing exploration of identity. I invite you to join me in this evolution. And just as Alice felt invincible, the head judge raised an eyebrow and declared, "And what implications will that evolution have on your future dishes? Are you willing to go further, even if it means alienating those who cling firmly to tradition?" The question penetrated deep, stirring a whirlwind of thoughts within her. Would she dare to descend into a world where change could breed hostility, and where her own evolution could place her at odds with the culinary convention she revered? Alice's mind raced as the head judge's words lingered in the air, heavy with implications, and steering her toward a pivotal choice. She could already hear the whispers of doubt echoing in the recesses of her mind. an age-old struggle between the comfort of tradition and the thrill of innovation. Was her desire to pursue authenticity worth the potential backlash from those who might view her creations as blasphemy? The young contestant's challenge had opened the floodgates of her anxieties. Beyond her fear of critique, a clearer truth emerged. She was terrified of alienating the very community that had nurtured her growth as a chef. Was she ready to unearth a voice that could push boundaries, a voice that might, in turn, resonate with those who felt trapped in conventions? Every evolution requires sacrifice, she thought, her pulse quickening. There was no easy path before her, yet the glimmer of an unclaimed future beckoned. Deciding between loyalty to her roots and the daring leap into undiscovered territory was not merely a professional dilemma, it was a profound introspection, a reflection on her identity itself. With the judges watching intently, she understood the weight of her next words. "I'm not here to alienate anyone," she replied, her voice steadying. "What I am proposing goes beyond mere fusion. It's an invitation to communicate, to tell a broader story that encompasses influences rather than erasing them. My dishes celebrate diversity, allowing us to experience a tapestry of flavors." The judges exchanged glances. Their interest was palpable, but would it translate into acceptance? She sensed the vulnerability of her ambition naked before them, ready to be scrutinized or embraced. Each breath felt laborious, a reminder of how much she longed for validation yet feared rejection. The head judge leaned slightly forward, eyes narrowing with scrutiny. "And what if this exploration doesn't land as you hope?" "In that case," Alice summoned conviction from the depths of her resolve, "I will reinterpret and refine. Growth doesn't come from comfort, it comes from discomfort. I am prepared to face whatever consequences arise, for every dish could offer me a lesson, a chance for evolution." A ripple of admiration flickered in the room, but beneath it lay apprehension. Could she truly embrace the risks? Would her newfound philosophy resonate beyond this moment, sustaining her through challenges ahead? Amid her reflection, Alice felt a fire igniting within her, an insatiable hunger for progress. This wasn't merely about culinary innovations, it mirrored her identity. Every fusion she crafted would be a testament to her journey and struggles, a collection of experiences woven into a singular narrative. As tension ebbed and flowed, Alice caught sight of the young contestant again, his defiance fading into contemplation. The dynamic between them had shifted. He hadn't just challenged her beliefs, but had unwittingly sparked a clarion call to pursue her artistry with fearless authenticity. The judge's intent gazes, once intimidating, transformed into glimmers of potential appreciation. With each second that passed, she felt bolder, envisioning her dishes not as mere offerings, but powerful expressions that could foster connections. Yet, lurking underneath her exhilaration, a whisper of dread persisted. What if her creations weren't enough? What if her attempts to unify were met with more divisive reactions? Alice realized this was merely the beginning. Her path ahead would unfold layers of doubt and discovery as she strove to define her vision. Just as she felt a glimmer of clarity pierce through her swirling thoughts, another question emerged, more pressing than before. What sacrifices would she need to make, and how far was she willing to go in order to realize her own potential? She had not merely agreed to a culinary evolution, but embarked on a deeply personal quest, fiercely challenging herself to inhabit new spaces. "Your answer has chosen a path for you," the head judge declared. "But can you embrace the weight of this journey, a journey where mastery coexists with vulnerability?" As she prepared to confront her fears, Alice felt the ground shift beneath her. The energy in the room pulsed with tension, and her heart beat in synchrony with a newfound awareness. The time had come to face the depths of her culinary identity, but would she emerge victorious or fractured? Her next step awaited, whispering promises of transformation. Attempting to quell the tempest inside her, the words of the head judge reverberated through her mind, sending ripples of determination coursing from her veins. She stood at a precipice, peering down into the unknown that lay ahead, a place where her culinary dreams clashed with her insecurities. Could she truly navigate this intricate dance of art and challenge? The pressures of tradition pressed like weights on her shoulders, yet the spark of innovation warmed her spirit. She envisioned the stories her dishes could tell, each flavor a note in a symphony of cultural homage. But would they resonate? Pointing her mind's eye toward the path ahead, Alice recalled her early days in the kitchen. Training under Chef Grayson was a relentless grind, perfecting classic techniques. But the heart of her education lay not just in the mastery of garlic sautéing or emulsification. It was in her gradual realization that every ingredient had a voice, every technique a history. Those moments of revelation ignited her creativity, but also cultivated anxiety. As she straddled the line between reverence and rebellion, her hands trembled when the spices hit a dish, unsure whether they would bridge her past with her radical future. Stepping back from this onslaught of inner turmoil, she concentrated on the judges, whose expressions had shifted from skepticism toward intrigue. They were watching her, not just as a competitor, but as a potential trailblazer. Their expectations felt like a heavy curtain she had to pull aside to reveal a flourishing garden of inspiration. Next time, you could draw upon experiences outside your technical training, she mused, assessing her strengths, acknowledging the hidden realms of her personality lying just beneath the surface. What stories had her childhood experiences with her grandmother's kitchen to tell? What kitchen disasters could be woven into reflections of growth? Realization dawned upon her. This journey wasn't just about evolving her dishes. It was a chance to peel back the layers of her own identity. Her insecurities began to morph into fuel for her creativity. During her grandfather's fishing excursions, she had learned to season the ocean's bounty with influences from her family's heritage, infusions of spices that danced between worlds. What if she combined that rustic experience with refined techniques gained from the prestigious kitchen? As she considered the possibilities, adrenaline surged within her, an exhilarating blend of fear and excitement. It was risky territory, but the prospect of being true to herself ignited a fire that drove her forward. Would the industry embrace these facets of her culinary storytelling, or would they demand she conform to a standardized vision of what a chef should be? The head judge's gaze met hers, a silent yet compelling challenge beckoning her to push the envelope further. Your authenticity will be your greatest tool if you wield it properly, she thought, reminding herself of the power already nestled within her. Just as the atmosphere in the room thickened with anticipation, Alice spotted her young challenger once more, their eyes locking briefly. He nodded subtly, a gesture of understanding and maybe even encouragement. His earlier defiance transformed into shared camaraderie. They were complicating the perception of culinary competition, a dialogue instead of a monologue. Alice clenched her fists beneath the table, her heart racing. Would her vision for her culinary identity withstand scrutiny? What if she succeeded in revealing her truth but found resistance in a world that clung tightly to its past? These questions carved their way through her thoughts, but a realization crystallized amidst the chaos. Vulnerability would be her greatest ally. She could take the leap if she kept her narrative close to her heart, letting it guide her decisions in the kitchen. Defining her cooking to reflect fragility alongside strength began to feel less like a burden and more like a calling. The moment had come for her to act, to stake her claim. The next dish she created would encapsulate not just technique, but also everything she had learned, the nostalgia and encounters, the doubts and revelations. She felt the gears of her mind start turning, mapping a course to her future, with each thought crystallizing into forms she could manipulate. Would she be able to elevate her craft to embody her journey? The tension built, pressing her on the brink of transformation, and all she needed now was to surrender to the narrative unfolding within her. What would her first bold dish look like, and would it be enough to turn the tide? Alice's mind whirred with the cacophony of flavors and memories as she moved toward her workstation, each step vibrantly laced with purpose. The determination coursing through her veins felt like an orchestra tuning up for a grand performance, full of promise and anticipation. Today, she would not merely cook, she would embody the essence of her journey, stitching together her past and her aspirations into one extraordinary narrative. As she reached her counter, she could still sense the palpable tension in the air, an electric charge that whispered both encouragement and challenge. The judges' gazes were fixed on her. She would be the one to turn their skepticism into admiration, and it was time to use every ounce of her being to prove it. Her first task was to find inspiration from her roots. She closed her eyes for a moment, envisioning the vibrant colors of her grandmother's kitchen. The fresh herbs, bright spices, and aromatic oils swirled in her memory like swirling vines. Each element interlaced defined who she was. Her childhood experiences with her family were the heart of her culinary spirit. In that moment, she felt a rekindling of something buried. The artistry of her roots wouldn't be merely a shadow as she stepped into the spotlight, but rather a foundation for her expression. With this clarity came an idea, an infusion of her family's love for seafood, particularly the catch from her grandfather's fishing trips, paired with her own learned techniques. She envisioned a dish that was not merely a recipe, but a manifestation. A seared scallop drizzled with a citrus-infused sauce she remembered watching her grandmother prepare, elevated with a twist of sriracha and fresh mint. This would be a dish that spoke of home, yet echoed a contemporary flair that could transcend the expected. But it wasn't just the dish itself that mattered. It was the story woven through the years, the long-held beliefs held by her family regarding food, culture, and connection. The emotional weight behind her culinary choices began crystallizing into something tangible. Alice set her station, collecting ingredients with fervor. She could almost hear her grandmother's voice echoing warm advice from days spent in the kitchen. Cook with your heart, but don't forget your craft. She tackled the scallops first, her fingers deftly mastering the precision required. As she seared each one, she felt her confidence swell, the rhythm of the kitchen enveloping her, a dance where she balanced technique and innovation. Did it matter if she hesitated? Did it matter if she stumbled? No. Today was about reclaiming her narrative. Yet, as she plated her dish, a familiar wave of doubt washed over her. What if the judges didn't see the depth of her heritage? What if they deemed her creation as a mere gimmick, another attempt at fusion that fell short of the revered classics? With each drop of sauce, the shadow of their expectations loomed larger, threatening to suffocate her creative spirit. She hesitated again, but then she remembered the young challenger who had nodded in solidarity. This was not only her competition, it was a collective venture into culinary artistry. She dashed for her garnishes, layering her dish with finely chopped herbs and edible flowers, additional elements that shouted both confidence and defiance. Each flower petal seemed to whisper encouragement, as if they knew the worth of her voice, drowning out the remaining whispers of self-doubt. The moment of truth was at hand as she approached the judging table with her creation in hand. The head judge's expression was inscrutable, yet Alice sensed the softening glimmer behind her steely demeanor. For the first time, Alice recognized the power of potential. This dish was a bold statement. It wrapped her past in innovation and vulnerability. But would it resonate with the judges, or would it merely echo back into the depths of mediocrity? As the first fork glimmered before her, time stretched, allowing the weight of choices made, centuries of culinary traditions, and her individual journey to converge into one pungent present moment. And then, she wondered, if this dish could speak, what would it say about her future, about the moment she had stepped beyond the shadows? The beat of her heart synchronized with the quiet murmurs of anticipation around her. Would she embody not just a chef, but an innovator today? The silence spoke volumes, teasing out the secrets of what might come next. Alice stood before the judges, her heart racing as they inspected her creation. The vibrant plate, layered with her heritage and modern technique, encapsulated not just the meal, but a piece of her soul. As the head judge lifted her fork, Alice felt a blend of hope and trepidation, awaiting the verdict that could drastically alter her future. The head judge took a bite, and the room fell into an expectant hush. Their eyes narrowed in deep focus, and Alice felt every second stretch into an eternity. Moments felt like hours as they savored the flavors, the initial uncertainty swirling within her starting to fade into anticipation. "This is remarkable," the head judge spoke, her voice steady but charged with surprise. "You've balanced the elegance with authenticity beautifully." Alice's breath caught in her throat. The praise wrapped around her like a warm embrace, unfurling a wave of validation she had yearned for. The other judges nodded in approval. One even murmured, "It's daring yet grounded." The recognition felt like a long-desired culmination of years of doubt and hard work. She had conquered a monumental fear. "You've not only presented us with a dish," the younger judge added, his enthusiasm palpable, "but a narrative that blends your past with a promising outlook. It's an exploration rather than a customary reflection." Nods circled the table as each judge echoed sentiments of awe and approval. They spoke of inclusion and evolution, and Alice felt turbulent waves of triumph crashing over her self-doubt. Finally, she had demonstrated her competence, her efforts translating into acquired respect in a highly competitive arena. This acknowledgement wasn't just for her culinary skill, it was recognition of her growth, a transformation sparked by resilience. As the critiques flowed, Alice could see the million-dollar chefs shifting in their opinions. Her presence injected newfound vigor within their established norms. They glanced at each other, murmurs of intrigue replacing the laughter that once haunted her. "Now," the head judge said, glancing back to Alice, "you've taken a bold leap. What we see here is potential that could revolutionize flavor profiles." The moment illuminated an empowering duality. No longer was she the invisible dishwasher. She was an innovator daring to reshape the culinary landscape. With each drop of recognition, Alice felt chains of uncertainty dissolve, revealing a solid confidence emerging from her humility and hard-earned experience. But deep down, she remained committed to not just riding this wave of validation. "I want to continue to refine my craft, creating dishes that speak of my identity, while also inviting others in to experience that journey alongside me," Alice replied, her voice swelling with newfound conviction. Applause erupted from her peers as the panel concluded. The all-too-frequent laughter had transformed into genuine appreciation for her culinary story, a shared respect for the beauty of her evolution. In that luminous moment, Alice recognized how far she had come. She had dissected her fears and rebuilt herself into a symbol of possibility. Standing tall, she basked in the sense of achievement and fulfillment that radiated from within. This journey revolved around not only cooking, but understanding. The richness behind her roots and embracing growth, even amidst fear of rejection. As the cook-off dwindled to a close, Alice found herself the center of attention, brightness in her eyes igniting the atmosphere. It wasn't just validation for her dish, it signified a pivotal moment of self-acceptance. The laughing chefs now leaned closer, drawn in by her authenticity, captivated by her evolving brand of culinary art. Today was a celebration of that evolution, a manifestation of her hard-won journey wrapped within every shimmering ingredient. She smiled as she reveled in her transformation, ready to embrace not simply success, but an ongoing journey filled with endless possibilities. Alice stepped forward, ready to contribute her voice to a world that was at last beginning to embrace her narrative. She stood confident and proud, a testament to the power of resilience. As she looked around, she caught glimpses of aspiring chefs, like the young challenger, who were now hunger-filled eyes seeking identity amid culinary challenges. Just then, she understood that her evolution was broader than her own experience. She was now a beacon reflecting change, standing tall in a space where creative rebellion could thrive. As the applause crescendoed, it was clear. Alice had not only stepped onto the culinary stage, she had carved an unassailable place within it, filled with promise and purpose. This was her triumph, an achievement built on overcoming fear, embracing identity, and celebrating resilience. She was no longer just a dishwasher. She was a chef, an innovator, a storyteller, and most importantly, a woman who dared to rise. As Alice exited the stage, the weight of her journey crystallized into a unified celebration of potential. One challenge was behind her, yet countless opportunities awaited on the horizon. Now it was time to share this newfound revelation with others, creating a ripple that could push boundaries beyond her own enlightenment. To anyone out there hesitating to take that first step, her encapsulated message rang clear. Embrace your story, claim your space. Your narrative is rife with power. You just have to harness it. Embark on that journey, no matter how daunting it may seem. You need to subscribe now to this channel, as your support fuels our mission to spread more extraordinary stories of personal triumph. Don't wait even one more second. Leave a like to push the boundaries of this community. Comment with your reactions and theories about Alice's journey, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need motivation to pursue their own dreams. Let's spark the fire together.